very happy good morning to all of you. Welcome back to my channel. Students, I hope you are following the lectures well and you are also preparing well. As I have already explained and I have already informed you that this whole month we are going to dedicate ourselves to revision of the previous topics. So we have already had a lot of discussion about file handling. So today by this video we are going to again revisit one of our earlier topics, that is Python interface with MySQL. So Python interface with MySQL refers to Python connectivity with MySQL database, and because you all are also going to work on your projects which are based on this connectivity itself, hence this chapter is very important with that respect also. So in today's revision session we are going to take up these three questions. So I am going to read all these three questions one by one for you, and one by one we will be solving those questions on the board. Now students, because these type of questions you will not only get in your practicals but you can get them in your theory exam also. So in the theory exam, as I have already told you, that you should always stick to the basics and the specifications given in the programming question. That is, instead of wasting your time in writing the entire code, you should only concentrate on writing what is asked. So if you are asked to write a specific function, then you should stick to that only and you should write the specific function only. So in these three questions, we are going to create separate functions and we are going to see the code. First question says, write a Python database connectivity script that deletes records from category table of database items that have name stockable. So we have to delete records from category table of database items that have name as stockable. So let us see, first let us try to figure out what are we dealing with. So the database which we are dealing with right now, the MySQL database which we are dealing with right now, its name is items. So it is the items database, and within the items database we have a table named category, and within that we have to look for all those items which have the name as stockable. Now you might be wondering, I don't have the database, I don't have the table with me, I can't see the table, I don't know what are the different fields and what is the data within the table. So in this question students, in your theory exam, you may not get all the required information. You have to be dependent, you are completely dependent on limited information which is given to you in the question. So over here, we are going to use this limited information only and solve our problem. Now, you don't need anything else. You need a database name, you need a table name, and you have to look for those names where name is stockable. So it is clearly saying that have name stockable. That means you might be having a specific field name which should have some values, and you have to look for all those names which have the value stockable, and you are going to print those values. So not print, you need to delete those records. Now deleting records means I am making some changes. I am making some changes in my database. Hence at the end I need to save those changes. So all these things we need to do. So now let us start with our question. records is the name of my function, and within this function I am going to create a new database. So firstly I am going to import the MySQL connector package, and I am going to create a new connection object. So we are going to provide the host name, and host name is going to be localhost. And continuing the line over here, I'll do one thing. I'll rub this entire thing and I will write it this side. So we import MySQL connector package, then we define a function, delete category. Now create a new connection object by using MySQL dot connector dot connect host is equals to localhost, because our database is on the same computer, it's on the same machine. So the same machine acts as my server also, hence localhost. User, normally our user is root. Password, we'll provide our password. So the password on my PC is 1234, and the database name. So over here the database name is items. So that's it. So we have established our connection by creating a connection object. Now we will check if con dot is connected. If this is true, that means our connection is successful. Connection to database is successful. So once our connection to database is successful, we can continue doing our work. As I had told you earlier, we will be creating a separate buffer region, just like we create a file object for files. So cursor, its name is cursor. So I will name this cursor as item cursor, and I will use the cursor function to create the cursor object. So now item cursor is the cursor object. Whenever it works with data from the file, it is going to read everything in the form of a list of lists, where individual records will be single list items within the outer list. So item cursor is the cursor, and now I am going to create the SQL command. The SQL command says deletes records from category table that have the name stock table. So delete from table name is required. So the name of my table is category, where name is equal to, now I have multiple options. I can either, because already it has, the data value has been provided in the question itself, so I can simply write here stockable. I can simply write stockable over here. First I will complete this code and then I will tell you which all other alternatives you can use for this. So this is my SQL and now I have to execute this SQL. So I will be using the cursor object. Item cursor dot execute SQL and con dot commit. This is very important because you are making changes into the database, hence it is important to save the changes. Students, we have done a mistake over here, that is it won't be MySQL.connector, rather it would be con.cursor. The connection object is going to create the cursor object. Now, there are other alternatives to this. One is, if you don't provide the stockable value over here, you can also provide it as an argument or an additional parameter which you can send to the function. So I will write here, so delete from category where name equals, I can close the, I can make use of the parameters, additional parameters which we can send. So I had explained in the class before that to send some additional values in the form of parameters to SQL, we make use of two approaches where we can pass parameters to SQL. One was the traditional approach and one was the new approach. So we are going to first use the traditional approach here. We make use of this parameter %s and this has been included within single quotes because the value which we are going to pass, it is a string value, and we are going to concatenate that value over here by just providing its value. So this is how we can pass it. So you can see that we have pair of single quotes here also and we have single quotes here also. So this thing which you see over here, this is the additional parameter which we are sending to MySQL. Okay, so this additional parameter will be matched with this argument over here. Sorry, or we can also say that this is the parameter and this is the actual argument which we are sending. Okay, so this argument will be sent. Now in some versions of Python this technique might not work. Hence what we will do is we will simply pass this value in the form of a tuple. So what we can do is right here we can make some changes. We can write value is equals to stockable, and this same value I can send over here. Along with SQL. So whatever will be the value which is stored in this variable value, which is a tuple, that would be sent to the MySQL database. So this is the traditional method, and if you want to use the new method, then you can use it in this way. And dot format, you can pass the value. So here you can pass the value that is stockable. And here you do not need to send any value as a tuple, so we can remove this statement. So this is how you can delete records from your database. Now we come to our second question. Design a Python application that fetches all the records from PET table of menagerie database. So name of the table is what? It is PET, and the name of the database is what? Menagerie. And you are going to fetch all the records from this table. So again we will make changes here. Fetch pet record, that is the name of my function now. So now I'm going to create a new connection object first. So the name of the database is Menagerie. This is the name of the database. So now what we are going to do is fetch all the records. Now fetching the records, when I talk about fetching the records, this is a select operation which we are going to perform on the table. And because we are performing a select operation, hence from your database, whatever comes into your cursor, that has to be extracted. That has to be extracted into a result set. This result set is actually a list of lists, where individual lists contain the records of the table. So let us see this, how we can do it. So we have created the connection object, and if you want you can check whether the connection is working or not. And we can, so I am not checking the connection over here, I am simply writing a comment line, check the connection. So you can understand that we have to check a connection, and hence you can include the code over here. I am not writing that code anymore. Okay, now let's create the cursor. So I am creating the cursor with the name pet cursor, con.cursor. So this will create the cursor object, and after creating the cursor object I have to write the SQL. So what is going to be my SQL to fetch all the records? It will be select asterisk from pet. That's it. And we are not providing any arguments over here. Why? Because we are not using any where clause. Okay, we are not going to supply any argument there. Hence, simple SQL and pet cursor dot execute SQL. Okay, so pet cursor dot execute SQL, and everything would be executed. And now whatever data is there in the database, whatever data was there in your database, it has come into your cursor object. But now we need to extract this into a result set. So how to do that? So for result set, we need to again use a result set object, and that would be a list object. So I am naming that as pet list equals pet cursor dot fetch all. So this pet cursor dot fetch all is going to fetch all the records which are there in the cursor, and it will bring it into the result set. And now we can easily make use of this pet list. Why? Because this pet list is nothing but it is a list of lists. Unlike files, where file object contains a list of strings, here it is a list of lists. So we contain all of them. So pet list contains all the records, and now we can individually display them. For record in pet list, print pet list. So this will print all the records in the form of lists. If you want, you can add this pet list to pretty table also. Okay, by using the add row function of pretty table, that is, you create a pretty table X dot add row, and you can add this, not pet list, sorry, it would be record. This value would be record. So we can easily add record to the pretty table, and at the end, once this loop finishes its execution, we can print the pretty table. Okay, so this is how we can do this question. Now let us come to the third question. Design a Python application that fetches only those records from the event table of Menagerie database where type is kernel. So let us check out the details. Fetches only those records from event table of Menagerie database where type is kernel. So we got the required things from our question. Now we will write the answer. So we will read kernel. Now creating a connection object, I think you can easily do that. Okay, so you can create a connection object. I won't repeat that, it's for you people to do. You can check for the connection. Check connection, that also you can do. I am going to concentrate mainly on the fetching part. So we are going to create an SQL, but now we need an argument, that is kernel. So there are multiple ways. Select. Okay, first we'll create the cursor. So event cursor, I am naming the cursor con.cursor. Now SQL will be select. Now we have to select record, so select asterisk from event table where, now what is given, type is kernel. So I will write here type is equal to, I can either provide it over here, that is with the name kernel. This is using the traditional method, and then event cursor dot execute SQL. So either I can do it this way, or I can simply create a tuple with the name value and provided the value kernel, and I can use it over here and instead of providing it like this over here. Okay, so value will also, this kernel value will be passed and it will be used to replace this format string. If not this method, you can use the new method kernel, and you don't need to pass any tuple over here, and you can omit this tuple definition from here. And once we do this, event cursor will contain all the matching records. Take it out in a result set. So let me take event result equals event cursor dot fetch all for row in event result, print row, and at the end I can also print the number of records fetched. Number of records equals, I can write event cursor dot row count. So this row count property will return the number of records fetched from the database file. So this is how we can solve questions very easily with the help of Python connectivity. So this is the way in which you have to write the answers in your exam. We don't need to do much, only whatever is asked in the question, you just need to do that. Okay. So with this we end today's class. Thank you.